Hey guys, my name's Andy. You've been doing a little research on YouTube about making lead weights. So most of the stuff about actually melting the lead is on YouTube. Much better resources than me. A couple things, seen some videos of explosions with water, so be real careful about putting wet lead or just dumping a whole bucket of lead into your pot before you start melting it. I got lucky, went to my local metal recycling place and found a bunch of lead that was priced at $1 a pound, and I didn't have to do the wheel weight thing like a lot of guys have. So just check it out, ask them for the cleanest thing they got. Maybe you'll get something that's pretty clean, not have to clean the little wheel weight metals and all the junk out of that. But what I got was I got this lead sheeting, and I'm not sure if it's out of a air conditioner or some kind of a copper plating type of machine or what, but it's really cool because it doesn't have a whole lot of junk in it. I've already cleaned off a few chunks and put them in the pot, and they're all melting down. I wish I had a little bit hotter fire. Here's another chunk of this lead. It's just a thin sheet, and I got 25 pounds of it. So we're going to melt this down and put it into some forms and make some egg weights for Texas Rigging Decoy lines. So here's our lead in the pot melting. Just like I said, thin sheets. I got it in smaller pieces to fit it in the pot. That's a total of 25 pounds in there. We'll see how many weights that'll make when we go get to work on our forms. I'll show you that in just a second. So what I've got here is just a couple of boards. Had a nice clean surface on the joint where they come together, and I'm going to clamp them together and then drill some holes for the weight forms. Alright, so here it is all set up, clamped up. I got the 1-inch bit in there. I've got my depth stop to where the depth of my holes from the tops of the board to the stop will be 1.5 inches. So I think that's going to get me right around 7 ounces for my weights. So here's the finished form. All the holes are drilled. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple more clamps on the ends just to make sure that when we put the lead in, it doesn't leak down that seam if possible. Alright, so we've got it all clamped up as tight as we can. If I had a planer, I would take off the little difference between the edges so I could scrape them off a little cleaner, but I did not. Now we're just waiting on the lead to melt the rest of the way. We're going to clean it a couple times and then start pouring.
Okay.
Alright, so one of the videos I saw, the guy, first you get in the pot and scrape off all the trash that's on top of the lead. Get as much as you can on the first couple rounds, and it's pretty clean from what I've been able to do. Use a slotted spoon instead of this one, but just dump the trash over somewhere safe, and then once you get it as clean as you can on the first round, you take some just regular candle wax and put it in the pot, and as it burns, what it'll do is it's supposed to flux the lead, and a lot of the impurities will float to the top. So there's just a lot more junk that comes up because of that flux. But like I said, there's other videos that do a better job of this part. We're worried about the Texas Rigging egg weights. Okay, stop it. Okay. So the plan is we're going to scoop lead out of the pot and into these forms, and hopefully it doesn't leak out the crack. So here's what they look like after they've cooled off. I know I lost some lead into the crack down here. It leaked out the side, but we've picked it all up. So we're going to bust them apart and see what they look like. Well, here's what it looks like after we busted it. I forgot to push record. So here's our forms. Obviously our crack was not sealed up super tight there in the middle, but this is what they look like. Inch and a half or so long. That's the tip from the drill bit, which I'll just clip off. And then I'll go and drill a hole down through the middle for the monofilament line, and that will be our weight. And it's a whole lot cheaper than buying them at the store. So here's what I ended up with. Trim the little drill point off. Found that a chisel worked really good for that, old wood chisel, get it good and sharp. But I got a dozen. I'm thinking that these flat ends will work better than the egg ends for keeping decoys still. I just got to drill holes. Okay, so via a whole lot of trial and error, I'm down to, I've had 4 successful weights and 3 that I had to melt off the bit. Drilling lead is not as easy as it might seem, even though it's soft. What happens when you start to drill is it heats up the lead and it clogs up the flutes on your bit. So as you try to dig deeper, it continues to get hotter, which then eventually you get your bit stuck. So a couple tricks: clean the flute out often, or keep it really cool, as cool as you can. I've been blowing air on it. That blows off some of the shavings, as well as keeps the bit a little bit cooler as you're diving into the metal. Really lock everything down tight on your clamp. Don't know how you would do this without a drill press. And then one nice thing is, as you finish up, you can kind of mush down the filings and finish off that edge. But we're getting some decent progress. So I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can show you what I'm doing while filming. So that's the way it works. Now, it took me about 6 tries. What will happen if you drive in there too deep is you'll get stuck. Once you get stuck, that lead on the bit cools off again, locks into those flutes, and it's not going to come off of there. So what I've had to do is just take the torch and melt the lead off of the bit back into the pile, and it goes back into the pot for the next round. So that's my trial and error experience. The molds may probably are more efficient, but I'm that cheap guy who doesn't want to buy one. So here's the end result. I was a lot of trial and error. Ended up with 8 out of 12 mold holes. Holes clean, and we'll see how they work on the Texas rigs. Alright, so found a better way to put the holes through the weights as opposed to trying to drill them in the drill press. A buddy of mine thought, what if you just take a nail, a big thick nail, and stick it down in the hole in the mold. So whenever the mold is together, you stick it down there in that little point that is left by your spade bit. You just kind of balance it and center it, and make sure that you grease it before you go in. And when you get them out, you can just pull those out with a set of pliers. It works pretty good. You just clip that end off and your hole goes all the way through. Works pretty slick. So here's the form all clamped up with the nails in the center, and that goes down in the hole that is made by that flat, by the tip of the flat 1-inch bit. You center it, kind of balance it in there, and that will create the hole for your egg weight, your line to go through. Here is the end result of all of our lead work. A bunch of cylinder-shaped egg weights with flat ends, hoping that they'll stick in the mud a little bit better. The nail idea worked really well. Nail with a little grease in the mold worked great. The only catch with that is if you get in a hurry and try to pull the nail out before the inside of the weight has cooled, your hole will close in and you've kind of defeated the purpose. So just let that pull it out of the mold and leave the nail in for a little while. Let it cool down good before you pull it out. You shouldn't have any trouble as long as you grease it up a little bit. When you figure that each egg weight at the store runs between $2.50 and $3, and I've got 37 weights here, and I've got $25 in lead and a little bit in a half a tank of propane, I think it came out pretty good. So a little elbow grease, and it worked out well. Thanks for checking it out. Hope this helps.